live stream. Let's see. Connect streaming software to go live. It's the same issue as last time. Oh, no, okay. It's working on YouTube. Oh, nice.
Oh,
Working on
okay.
Facebook now, too.
All right.
Exciting. Okay, so let's see. For the copy, I said back to school, digital wellness scale, and video gaming as a family. Parents Corner number 2 with Melissa Bartholomew. We'll do this for, we'll go for like 20 or so minutes. Yeah, I put some tentative items in the agenda, but what do you want to talk about?
Those sound good. No, those sound good to me. I was
Okay.
looking at your notes there. So, yeah,
Okay.
sounds good.
Any burning cues from the community? Any
That I
questions?
know of.
No.
For you.
Okay. Cool. All right. Well, I'm gonna. In that case, I will. I think go live. I think we are live actually in
Oh, yeah.
YouTube. Now we'll go live on Facebook too. We'll see how it works. Live video is starting. All right, we're now live. All right, welcome viewers, present and future, if you're watching a replay, to the official Parents Corner, Virgils Parents Corner number 2. I'm joined today by the wonderful Melissa Bartholomew, Virgil, I think number 4 or 5, who I have the pleasure of working with. And today we are going to talk about a few topics that are pertinent to parents who want their kids to develop a healthy relationship with technology, perhaps somewhat unsurprisingly. So, Mel, you put a bunch of some interesting research paper on my radar, and I feel like I had seen this pop up elsewhere. So I think we're going to dive into that. This is the digital wellness scale. There's a new sort of scientific a clinical tool, I guess, right? Or I don't know exactly what the definition is. You're the professional, so you'll have to teach me a little bit. But we'll go into that in a second. First, I think just to start off, a lot of parents are in back to school mode. They're taking their kids back to school. They had a whole summer, hopefully not entirely in the virtual world. A lot of time in the real world. But now, as people are getting back to school, it's a good time to reflect on your tech habits and taking into account the fact that you do have homework and you do have after school obligations, and of course getting to school and getting enough sleep and all that kind of stuff. So for parents whose kids are coming back to school, what should they be paying attention to when it comes to tech use?
Ooh, tech use. Yeah, we did a poll in the community this week and we asked our parents, does your tech limits, change in the school year compared to summer?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, and I would put myself in that boat as well. It is a whole nother ballgame. So, like you said, you got all the things. So, yeah, I mean, each school year is different, depending on grade level and teacher as far as how much homework kids have. I know my daughter has a significant amount more homework this year compared to last year. Talking probably literally like 4 or 5 times the amount of last year. And I mean, she had very little last year, so,
Yeah.
uh, but it's a big change. So I think that tech use is, thinking of all the things that are very important. You think of your priorities. What's the most
Mm-hmm.
important things, that are important to you and your family. And so, of course, yeah, the homework, schoolwork, personal things, extracurriculars. And so kind of putting all those things into your schedule and kind of seeing how much time you have left over, um, to then be free. And then that could be with tech use. So different families have a lot of different tech use. So it's hard to kind of give blanket statements, but I would say that being consistent is always a parent's best friend,
Mm.
consistent rules. If your rule is, for instance, okay, you got to do your homework before you turn on technology, whether that's your rule or whether it's you get 30 minutes or an hour before your rule is, just kind of making consistent rules and kind of leaving some flexibility, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And collaboration too with your kids, trying to kind of just talk about these things. You're not trying to be mean or, a dictator parent by limiting technology, which seems so awesome, but, just kind of talking a lot of schoolwork this year. Like, okay, like how do we, we don't want to be doing it late at night or, just kind of collaboratively talking with your kids about your schedules and what's
Mm-hmm.
going to work for everybody and understand and get their buy-in into as far as it's a good plan, you know. Um,
So it sounds like, really three things to keep in mind. One is first acknowledging this is a very dynamic time, and certainly as the kids get older, the homework requirements, the teachers they have, everything else, it's going to be even different than it was last year. So you already have the change of coming out of the summer. You've had your own kind of schedule, probably a lot of free time during that time, and then coming into the school year, you've got many obligations, and it's not even the same obligations that you had before. It's something completely new, and so that requires a bit of planning. As you and I both know, ultimately healthy technology use, it really is a matter of attention, where you put in your attention and time. So some of that scheduling is important, but at the same time, don't become a control freak about it, right? So we're all familiar with overscheduling. Kids and human beings. I mean, adults in general. Everybody needs flexibility and a little bit of time in between those scheduled activities. So that's a good thing to keep in mind too. And then third, really collaborating with your child to establish, boundaries to help them understand the reasoning behind having these different rules in place. So practically speaking, putting those three into effect, how does one have a fruitful conversation with their child about actually coming up with a plan?
Good question. Yeah. Different ages, maybe different conversations. But maybe for, say if it's middle schoolers, where technology, they may already have a phone, they may already have a tablet. And so having some general kind of rules probably across the board are helpful. But just having check in times too. I think just, hey, it's a new school year. Okay, we've been trying. I had this conversation in my this past week. Like we've tried this. You wanted to, maybe watch right when you got home, but then we were kind of doing homework later, or we kind of just talk about, okay, these are all the things we want to do together. That didn't really work for us. So let's think of another plan together. Because like you mentioned earlier, sleep super important, right? I mean, kids got to get to bed at a certain time. That's a necessity. Dinner, super important. And if they're in, so just really, just opening that door. I think, hopefully you're kind of talking about touching every area of their life
Mm-hmm.
anyway, but including technology. So you're talking to them about their school day and talking to them about their friends, but also technology. Like, yeah. So.
Bringing it all together into one kind of cohesive conversation. Now, what about, let's say, you've got one of your kids maybe spent a little bit too much time on the screen, had a lot of fun playing Fortnite with their friends, whatever. Doesn't necessarily have to be bad, but the digital habits that they developed over the summer are not going to fit with their schedule. Um, how can you help them make those changes, wean them off of the video games or the YouTube or whatever that they're just not going to have time for?
Good question. I think just talking to them and saying, hey, um, you can ask them too, like, thought about, have you thought about this? Big change from summer to, have you thought about this? And because some kids, are pretty incredible. I mean, I have some kids that I work with that are, you know, excellent students and they love to play games. And so in the summer, they may play a lot, or on a particular day they may play a lot, but then when it comes to schoolwork, they can put it down, and schoolwork is a high priority. So I think by helping them kind of focus on their goals and other
Mm.
areas of their life that are important to them, because some kids may surprise you and set their own limits depending on their age and personality, and
Hmm.
other kids are going to need a little bit more help, especially if they're, say, and depending on personality and motivation too. So if they're not setting it themselves, then maybe it's having that conversation. Hey, like, totally, letting them know you're on their side. They're fine with you gaming, but let's, I think we're gonna have to rethink this schedule, and just kind of figuring out what's important to them. A lot of kids do have goals that they
Hmm.
don't even tell their parents a lot of times,
Hmm.
um, where their goals are maybe secretly to get better grades or secretly, they have some really great personal goals that their parents might not know about. And so it'd be kind of um, cool, I think, if parents kind of draw those out. Like, what are you hoping for? Again, not just talking about technology use, but, the whole thing. What are your, like, goals for this year? What are you kind of hoping
Hmm.
this year? You know, and trying to kind of use those to motivate. And if that doesn't work, then you might have to set some more, you know, what's the word I'm looking for? Straightforward rules regarding the
Healthy,
tech
healthy
use.
boundaries. Yeah.
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 Yes.
Can't always just be their friend. Do have to draw the line
Oh, for
somewhere.
sure.
Now, in terms of goal setting, this is obviously something that's quite important in the context of the fellowship program. We try to teach the kids the importance of long-term thinking and goal setting. What's a good way to get that conversation started? Because, like you said, it might be that there are a lot of kids who have, as you said, secret goals, and to have a secret goal to excel in school, I think is that's a very enviable position to be in as a parent if your kid is going out of their way to do that. But maybe they haven't sort of thought that through all the way and reached that conclusion themselves. Um, what's sort of a first question that you can ask to get your kid thinking about goal setting at all?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Try to put an age on this too, because it really varies
Yes.
by the age of the child. But if we're just sticking with middle schoolers, that could be a tricky time to talk. So, yeah, I think spending time with them, and even sharing kids, parents. It's kind of funny, but when kids are in middle school or even younger, it's like they always think of their parents as like old old people all the time. Like they think like they never were their age, And so I think even just bringing themselves into the conversation and saying, "Oh, when I was your age, I wanted to do this, or I thought about saying, what do you, or do you, just asking them like, what are you hoping for? You could start
Hmm.
small and go big, or the opposite, go big and start small. So it could be, what kind of job do you want to have when you get older? Or, you know, these open-ended questions
Hmm.
with no agenda. Really, I
Hmm.
mean, your agenda, I guess, is to get them to start thinking of goal setting. But
Right. Right.
but just open-ended, and whatever their answer is, just being really curious.
Right.
Um,
But it's
you know,
not. But it's not like a intense like interview, kind of like face
that's
to
right.
face, right? And that's
Right.
that's sort of been a core insight in our journey at Virgils is really taking to heart this idea of meeting people in general, but especially kids where they are. And so if they do feel comfortable and they do enjoy playing games or meeting in virtual worlds, then that may be an effective medium. And in fact, there's an
Absolutely.
article that I just saw. Let me see if I can learn how to share my screen here. I'm nervous. I'm going to share the company cap table or something. All right, so here we go. I don't know if you can see that. Should parents play
Yep.
video games with their kids? So this is, looks like it just disappeared. Should parents, sorry about the tech issues here, folks. Can you see it now?
Yeah.
Okay,
At least I can.
perfect. So this was a fun little article that came out in the New York Times. Not just an opinion, but a student opinion. I didn't realize that there was a student
Oh.
opinion column. And the key question is, should more parents play video games with their kids? And I think this is something that parents are starting to intuit that, hey, maybe this isn't just something that we should dissuade them from doing, but in fact, there could be an opportunity to build a stronger relationship if I lean into the various things that they're interested in. And of course, we see this empirically working with parents. This can be a very effective way to meet the kid where they are, have them feel emotionally engaged, have them feel a sort of a sufficient degree of control and sort of power in the conversation. And magical things can happen when you have open-ended conversations in that context. And so just wanted to highlight this article. They asked a bunch of kids. Love the illustration here. It's like a 8-year-old with a mohawk right on. Um, but there's a 30-year-old middle school teacher, and I'm 30. My co-founder's 30. Who says, since I can remember, I've been playing video games. If it had Mario in it, I probably played it. My 3-year-old plays video games now. I love sharing that with him. So even as young as 3 years old, I mean, that's pretty young. But for this parent, it's an easy way to sit and talk. And this is interesting too, because we'd sort of compared this earlier, somewhat jokingly, to sitting down with your kid and having this really intense, bullet-driven sort of like agenda outline conversation about what their goals are. Instead giving them this open space, not just to communicate verbally, but non-verbally as well. What are they doing with their body language? Are they practicing their hand-eye coordination? Are you going to learn something? Maybe they'll learn something through losing a game. It's a great way to gain self-knowledge, certainly. There are a lot of opportunities here. And, just kind of piggyback on your advice, once you kind of get into that flow and you have that open-ended conversation, which is not necessarily so different as like going outside and playing catch, but it is sort of a different flavor to that kind of collaborative activity. Then maybe when the time is right, those potentially tougher topics, like what do you want to do with your life? Pretty big question. Maybe it makes sense to start weaving those into the conversation as sort of appropriate. So I just thought that was kind of fun. This was in the New York Times. I thought this was very salient.
That is. I love that. I think that it's important to bond, to strengthen that bond with kids, like their language is, and not just young kids, but, adolescents is still play. And, it's like, that really is meeting them where they are. And so if, kids love play video games, I'm sure, they would love their parents to join them. It's like, it's kind of, maybe not all the time, but at least from time to time. And for this particular, or that one parent, he said he wanted to kind of share that with his kids. And I think that it kind of goes both ways, it's, we have to find things that we like doing, that we genuinely like doing with our kids, and also things that they like doing with us. And sometimes it's the same thing, and sometimes it's different things. So, but both of those strengthen the bond. So.
Yeah, and it's kind of a nice thing too, where this is really, I would say, the first generation broadly. I don't know if you like millennials are having kids, maybe sort of Gen X as well, that grew up with video games, at least being somewhat exposed. If you weren't like a hardcore gamer, you most likely at least knew somebody in the neighborhood who had an Xbox or played Mario with or something like that. And so that then's interesting. It makes it a little bit more discursive, whereas previous generations, where this is something that's totally alien, it would have been a much bigger lift to try using the new medium to have the conversation with the kids. So definitely something interesting on the horizon. I think there's, we're obviously very excited about the potential of these virtual spaces and digital play media to help strengthen family bonds in particular, and two, to have those tough questions that are deeply human and perennial about who we are and where we're going and all that kind of stuff. Games and digital media in general can be a fantastic way to have those. So we've been talking a little bit about back to school tips. Just to quickly recap a few things. One is acknowledge that this is a time of great change, not just from the summer to the fall, but versus previous years. Two, you're going to be best set up for success if you are, doing at least a little bit of planning and time management with your kids. And then, of course, the caveat to that is, you don't want to be overscheduling or too much of a control freak. And then also really, really make it collaborative. And a great way to enhance that collaborative process, not just, getting better answers, having the kids be more engaged, but also, potentially learning something that wasn't even related to the activity in the first place, is to consider playing a game with your kid. So could be Mario, could be, you know, um, I'm embarrassed to say, I don't even know what the cool games are nowadays. Minecraft, play Minecraft together. Um, all right, let me look at the comments quickly. I don't think we have any comments. I think I saw something on YouTube. That was a hello from Becco. Hey, Becco.
Oh, hey, Becca. All right.
All right. So I think those are good back to school tips. There were some other interesting news items that came across our collective desk. One was about the digital wellness scale. And if we have time, we can go into the other ones. But let's start with that. What is the digital wellness scale, Mel? Why should we care? And what are we going to learn from what these fantastic scientists did in developing this?
Wow. Are you able to share the article too, if anyone's interested?
I am.
That
Yeah,
we
let me
got
pull it
this
up.
from?
Yes.
I think Becco actually shared this article with us. It was really cool. I liked this. Because in this article, they were talking about, how it's been, people are studying the negative effects of how, digital does, but they are wanting to study the opposite, how
Mm-hmm.
they call it digital flourishing, how,
Mm.
actually being, and they actually studied a group of adolescents with this digital flourishing scale. And
Hmm.
they shared lots of things, actually. Uh, let me see if I can. But some of the things that, let me see, there's a,
So it looks like I'm looking at the abstract. Connectedness, civil participation, positive social comparison, authentic self-presentation, and self-control. I like that this is a narrative violation. When I feel like when I see in the news technology, uh, adolescent sort of well-being and technology use is usually connected to the opposite of these
right?
things. So that's
Mm-hmm.
that's quite a nice surprise to see that there may be a light side to all this.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really interesting. They were talking about how, adolescents are the ones who use digital, media the most,
Hmm.
supposedly, out of all groups, and the different reasons. But they also found some positive effects of teens actually flourishing. Uh,
Hmm.
yeah, and in regards to autonomy or kind of presenting who they wanted to be, their authentic self online, was consistent with who they were in real life. And it was a place, I guess, where they could, express themselves and be independent, because that's kind of a stage of life where we're working on being more independent. And they also talked about, which I thought was really interesting, is comparison among peers
Hmm.
and how that actually can help you. A lot of times we think of the negative comparisons. We think, oh, teens are going online with their peers and they're feeling bad about
Right.
themselves.
Right.
That's kind of the narrative. But they were saying actually the opposite can happen. There's a lot of really good things. Not that that doesn't happen, but there's a lot of good things that can happen. They can actually look at their peers and be
Hmm.
inspired,
Hmm.
and it can actually cause them to be more motivated to reach their goals and do positive things. And so I thought that was really interesting.
That is totally fascinating. I had a good conversation with a gentleman who's a therapist, and social media and just technology mental health expert in general named Andrew Walsh. Um, and we talked about this thing of comparison through digital media. This is something that's been talked about, in sort of, I guess, like philosophically minded circles. Rene Girard was this anthropologist who died a few years ago, who was at Stanford, who had this theory of mimetic desire, that humans were very innately, we desire the things that other people desire. We like to copy other people. Monkey see, monkey do, I guess, is like the basic way of putting it. But I always wondered, usually it's cast as kind of a negative thing, and certainly it makes sense that technology takes that to levels that we've never seen before, or social media especially. But one of the things I was talking with Andrew about was the possibility that it doesn't just have to be a competitive, sort of envy-driven thing where you feel less than in stature, and that is, has a negative impact. But in fact, there's a positive side to that where you aspire to be greater than you are, and you actually take, you sort of, you I don't know exactly what the right term is, but you're happy for that person, right? Like you have some sort of you want to root them on, right? Like somebody's doing a great job who's ahead of you. You find inspiration, you feel maybe a little bit humbled, and that gives you a boost to head in their direction. So the difference between, I think, a sort of a razor's edge, I guess, between that kind of positive emulation and desire to emulate versus like envious imitation or competitiveness. And thinking about that, cultivating a mindset that is more about positive emulation than envious imitation. How can parents get that across to kids to have a positive perspective so that they can flourish in the digital age?
These are just all in my opinion. I don't know the exact answer to these questions. um, yeah. I a little bit what you're talking
Yeah.
about. They use the term, which I'd never heard of, benign envy.
Interesting.
Isn't that interesting? I've never heard
Yeah.
that, and I was like,
I didn't know
wow,
envy could be benign.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like so, but
Huh.
but some of the things that they found correlations with these positive outcomes of digital flourishing, interestingly enough, were their father's occupations. Find a correlation with socioeconomic status.
Mm.
The mother's occupation didn't have a difference in their digital flourishing, but the father's did. I thought that was really interesting. But I mean,
So sorry, I just want to pause you there for a second. So
yeah,
what was the actual like, so if a father had a certain type of job or status or something, like what was the connection?
yeah, they really broke it down. They have a chart in there where they really broke
Let's see if I
down
can
the
find it.
jobs um, in there to okay, vocational education. I think so. It was between professional.
With less educated fathers demonstrated significantly higher scores on positive social comparisons than adolescents with highly educated fathers. Well, that's interesting.
Isn't that interesting too? I forgot about that.
So, if your dad has a graduate degree, or if you have a graduate degree, then there's a higher risk that it could be negative or something like that.
For social, just on that particular, not all of them, but really interesting study, I have to say.
This is fascinating. This is I'm getting a kick out of this. Mothers and fathers report similar levels of digital skills in different domains, Mothers report more advanced skills in information search and privacy management, but fathers report more advanced skills in coding and content editing.
Oh, wow.
What do you think about that?
Okay, I did not read that sentence in this yet. That's interesting.
Huh.
Advances in privacy
An information
and
search.
search. Yeah, information search.
That seems that seems intuitively correct. I don't know why. My mom when I was like 9 years old. I guess how old was I? I mean, we had the World Wide Web
Hmm.
access. Must have been. I mean, it was in the '90s, and I was not even 10 years old at that point. But I kind of distinctly remember my mom at some point sitting me down and showing me how to do these extremely advanced queries on like Alta Vista, but like before Google was the main search engine. It
Hmm.
was, there was like Alta Vista, there
I
was
forgot about that.
Babelfish, I want to say. That might have just been for translation or something, but Ask Jeeves, right? Like, I mean, there's,
Oh gosh, I forgot about that.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Jeeves.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there was a the Cambrian explosion of like search engines back in the late '90s or whatever. But yeah, I remember my mom was just like really good at that. So I don't know, maybe that's why that's catching my eye. But she was an advanced searcher.
But now that you say that, my mom was too. Like,
Really?
she could find anything online. Like, no lie. Like, yeah, yeah. That is so funny.
It's funny. Tapping into some kind of primal instincts there. Interesting. Okay.
Super interesting article. They had a lot of findings in this article, but
Yeah, I'm trying to find the um, the profession thing. It's pretty interesting.
hmm yeah, there was a chart I remember seeing.
Okay, we'll look for that. I see they mentioned that they had
Mhm.
Slovenian participants. Highly recommend going to Slovenia. It's absolutely beautiful. Been there once.
Really, that is so
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. Although my digital use was minimal because we were out whitewater rafting, so
Oh, nice.
yeah, it was pretty fun. Okay, I'm failing. I mean, clearly I'm the father with like the bad search. I'm gonna be the dad with like the poor search skills. I can't find it, but I'll take your word for it that basically the dads there was an impact. It sounds like with paternal career track on the sort of the use of technology, which I oh, sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I was gonna say it, but to kind of, I'm glad you found that other thing with the social aspect because it affected different areas differently. I guess
Hmm.
the parents' socioeconomic status or job status or higher education, it affected different parts differently. So one that I just remembered was that the dad, you know, um, had a higher paying job, we'll say, or more a job that required more schooling,
Mm-hmm.
then the daughters um, feel they'd have a higher sense of like autonomy in the social and feeling what was the word that they used? Kind of like their self as a context, feeling authentically themselves online.
Mm-hmm.
So I just thought those were really interesting little findings in that article. But
Yeah, hopefully lots more good research to come too. I mean, I think we're just scratching the surface. Like a lot of the I would say the dialogue and kind of the press around technology and mental health in particular, but general sort of well-being with kids and teens has been very negative.
yeah. Hmm.
And while I think it's correct in a very narrow sense, in that I think there are negative outcomes that are more extreme than ever, that have there's kind of that relationship with technology where these things are related.
Hmm.
There's a mirror image to that, where you have kids who are on kind of the other side of the bell curve, where the
Hmm.
outcomes are getting more extreme, who are, I love the fact they use the term flourishing.
Hmm.
They are flourishing in the digital age, and Same number of clicks gets you to a state of flourishing, or a state of unprecedented difficulty. So good things to
Mhm.
talk about, even if nobody knows the answers. At least talking about this with your kid while you're having co-screen time with them could be good. Um,
Yeah.
I have there's one other article that we didn't really talk about in the prep, so I'm just going to hit you with a curveball
All
on
right.
this live. It's kind of an intense topic, so we don't have
Oh,
to necessarily dig into it. But this
okay.
really caught my eye in the news digest that we got yesterday, which is, let me pull this up. The headline is "Digital Self-Harm is on the rise among
Oh,
teens." Is this Have you ever heard of this, digital self-harm?
not exactly. No, I'm just gonna say no.
Okay. This was new to me too. I had never heard of this. Turns out this is something where there's been some research, I think going back maybe a decade. Um, so unfortunately, it looks like there's a strong correlation between digital
Mm-hmm.
self-harm and suicide amongst middle and high school students in the United States. But what is digital self-harm? And this was I was a little shocked to discover that this was a thing. Essentially,
Mm-hmm.
what this is that, so the definition given by this professor, and can you see my screen okay?
That helps. Zooming, I can see
Okay.
them better. Mm-hmm.
All right, we are learning by doing here. Live stream number two. Okay, so digital self-harm is anonymous online posting, sending or otherwise sharing of hurtful content about oneself.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yeah, so I had heard of cyberbullying. In fact, we're
Mm-hmm.
lucky that one of the world's foremost cyberbullying experts is on our advisory board, Professor
Awesome.
Emerita Sherry Bauman. Um, but this is something else where somebody is essentially engaging in cyberbullying tactics, but anonymously in a public forum where they're doing it. It's not a third
Wow.
party. Yeah.
Hmm.
So on forums and social media.
Okay, an anonymous account. That's what I was wondering. If they're making an anonymous account
Hmm.
to publicly send hateful, threatening, or humiliating messages, or threats to oneself. Wow. Okay.
That's a
Peers will
Yeah.
see the post and have no idea who it is. Hmm.
So they're creating this cyberbullying environment where they are both the perpetrator and the victim.
Wow.
That's dark.
That
I'd
is.
literally never heard of this. Never. If somebody had told me that this was a thing, I don't know if I would have believed them. Um, so teens are spending 9 hours online each day. It says that's not including time spent schoolwork. That is shocking, but not surprising, perhaps.
Yes.
And it looks like it's up about 50%. So 2016, it said that 6% of adolescents had engaged in digital self-harm. Wild. And so that's a little more than 1 in 20, and then almost 1 in 10 in 2019. And this is pre-COVID.
Wow.
And it says males are at least slightly more likely to engage in this behavior. So you never heard about this before.
Well, if you can you scroll up one more
Yep,
time,
yep.
just
Sorry about that.
so where it was saying those examples, scroll up a little bit more.
Hmm.
Um, right here. So, like these things, like yeah, you're stupid, you'll never amount to anything. So I work with teens, right? It's my
Hmm.
job. I'm a
Hmm.
therapist, and we talk a lot about their digital voluntarily talk about it. And these are the things that are said to them sometimes online.
Mm.
Now whether they're doing it themselves or not online, sometimes, yeah, I would say sometimes I guess people I do know teens that have said things about themselves like that online.
Hmm.
But it's, yeah, I mean, I've definitely heard of it in that way, I guess. Where I'm like,
Mm.
whoa, I'm like, where did you hear that? Or where did they hear that? Or, where did this, sometimes I'm like, where did this come from? And yeah, there are these very, 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 very concerning things. And one of my, um, one of the teens I work with and stuff, then we kind of talk about healthy relationships online,
Hmm.
and we kind of coined the term, and for us, the toxic 10-year-old, because it was a 10-year-old who had initially said some of these exactly
Whoa.
like this
Whoa.
things online. Yeah. And so,
So this
very,
is
yeah.
this is unfortunately happening, and I would imagine, no parent wants to be in a position where their kid is on any side of this equation, either the victim of cyberbullying, the perpetrator, or strangely on both sides at the same
Yeah.
time. I guess in this case, um, do you think have you? I guess I'm wondering, like, do parents generally aware of this, or is this something that the kids are keeping to themselves?
A lot of kids will keep it to themselves,
Mm, mm,
these things, because a lot of times, and depending on the child, I think if, um, I've also had, families I've worked with where a kid has maybe said something similar to this, but not quite like this, while playing a game, and then, those kids then told their parents, and then, they kind of got them the help that he needed, and he was really grateful, and was
yeah,
like, oh, I have good friends that care about me. Um, but then a lot of times you also have kids that don't say anything to their parents about these things, and
yeah.
yeah, so, and parents have no idea that it's happening.
I think this is one of those things. When I work with parents whose kids are in the cohort program, we do some of the sort of tailored guidance.
Hmm.
Um, we try to find opportunities to inform them of some of these, and they're usually somewhat aware, but there are new dangers or new patterns of behavior that can have really negative consequences when it comes to mental health or just well-being in general, that this generation can encounter online that didn't exist before in quite the same way. And so the one that people are usually sort of the most aware of is pornography. So adult content is
Hmm.
myriad on the internet, and that's I think every parent should be having a conversation with their kids about that.
Absolutely.
Sooner rather than later. Kind of get ahead of it and arm the kids with sort of an understanding and some tools and techniques for unfortunately the point when they do come in contact with it. Um,
Hmm.
I think the same is true for a lot of other things that have yet to enter the mainstream. And so something like this, cyberbullying or digital self-harm, I mean,
Hmm.
clearly it's it's happening. One in 10 kids. And if you have 2.3 kids per family or whatever the average is, two kids, and that's one in five families, are gonna be dealing with this. So I
Hmm.
think I think we talked a little bit earlier about what can be good about playing games with your kids or meeting them where they are, Roblox,
Hmm.
Minecraft, maybe even not even playing video games, but watching YouTube channels with them they like, watching
Hmm.
TikToks that they like or something like that. These are all activities that can be engaging and open up channels of communication where there can be a very positive dialogue. These kind of topics, I think, are the kinds of topics you want to give a little bit of thought and planning to, and then keep in the back of your mind for when you're playing games or having some kind of engaging digital experience with your kids. Um, because that's the point at which it's a little bit easier to have the tough conversations, and you end up getting ahead of something rather than being surprised and having to react after the fact because you've heard it from a third party, whether it's another family or you know, one of the kids' friends or something like that. So, not to freak people out too much, but it clearly this is happening. The data shows it's on the rise, and whether it's adult content or cyberbullying or there's sort of other stuff too when it comes to I think we'll produce some content at some point around like conspiracy theories and more extreme content that is sort of being weaponized online. These are topics that are real, they're important, and if you're able to plan some time to spend with your kids, weaving those in to the conversations can be very fruitful and will probably yield positive results in the long run.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah, I like to have, my time where it's just playing. There's no kind of agenda, but just spending time, with my daughter. And then also like to have other times that create, space for other conversations to happen. Because obviously it'd be a little awkward, in the middle of playing a game, and then,
Hey,
kid's gonna catch on pretty quick.
Yeah.
Oh, they're gonna ask me a weird question when we're playing today,
So yeah, they know.
So they know. So, creating that kind of more natural, normal times to have those conversations. And even if it's just, I think curiosity is a great place to be, and just saying, hey, like, oh, I read this article, or I heard this thing about this, if it's age appropriate for your kids, if they're older, and they're on those platforms, and just saying, has anyone ever told you this online? Like,
Yeah.
just being curious is a really great place to be, and kind of trying to see what's happening in your kids' lives. So
Always be curious. Curiosity that's always a great attitude to go into the situation with. Whereas, I can imagine that can be very difficult, something kind of alien and new, and is for some parents. I mean, some parents have told us they feel like the devices and the digital distractions in some cases are competing for their kids' attention, and that can be, feeling like you almost have another person in your home who's, getting in the way of your relationship with your kid. That could be pretty horrible. But if you can lean into that with some curiosity and maybe a bit of fortitude, then interesting things can happen. It's an opportunity for understanding.
for sure, yeah, not easy being a parent. That's
No,
for sure.
no, especially when there are so many new things going on. Cool. Well, that covers most of our topics. Hopefully, anybody who attended, I saw we had a couple of comments. Justin Woolard, cool stuff. Well, thank you. I like to think so. And he says, I remember being taught how to do very simple coding in BASIC. A cherished memory of my first personal computer. I was never good at coding. My dad tried to, he bought me a bunch of like Python textbooks and tutorials, and I never quite did it. My digital media was all like, I don't know, making YouTube videos of me rapping about the presidents and really bad stuff that's extremely embarrassing. I confirmed a couple of years ago it's still on YouTube somewhere. It's like from 2006 or something like that.
All
So,
right.
but
Gonna put those researching skills to use.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, you're equipped with it. All right, well, go create good digital memories with your kids as you return back to school this fall. Melissa, thank you very much for joining today and giving some great expert tips. We're gonna have you on again next week. We're making this a regular thing, and then tentatively, I gotta double check to confirm this on Thursday. Sam, who is another one of our fantastic Virgils, is gonna have a conversation where we share some more screen time tips in the Parents Corner. So anybody who got to see this, thanks for joining. Definitely join the Parents Facebook group if you can. And then, of course, I would be remiss if I didn't plug some of our other offerings. We do send out a newsletter where we have expert tips that we share, sort of bite-sized format by email. And then, of course, we have our bread and butter, which is our cohort-based fellowship program for kids between the ages of 10 and 16, where they both get to learn practical skills and how to develop healthy tech habits, but also tackle the really deep questions that are exist sort of independent of technology are deeply human. Who am I? Where am I going? How do I play this game called life and level up along the way? So we weave that all into the curriculum, and that's what makes it easier to come back to reality. So you can find out more at virgils.io. Melissa, thank you again for joining and sharing your expertise.
Honey, always fun.
All right, I'll see you next week.
Alrighty.